The rain hit the battlefield like sharp needles. Ash mixed with smoke in the air. The ground shook every few seconds as something exploded in the distance. Karela stood tall near the edge of the ridge. Her glowing blue skin shimmered under the rain. Her long black braids were wet and clung to her back. Her eyes burned with pride. She turned to the human standing beside her. "Stay out of my way, human," she snapped. J-Sep didn't respond. He stood quietly watching the broken landscape ahead. His armor was scratched, his helmet hanging from his side. His face was calm, unreadable. He looked like a man who had seen too many battles. Karela didn't like him. She didn't like how silent he was. She didn't like how his eyes watched everything. Most of all, she didn't like that the command had assigned her a trained warrior of the Verni to work with him. As a human, a species known more for their tricks than strength. "Did you hear me?" she growled, stepping closer. "I don't need your help." Jace slowly looked at her. "Okay," he said. That was it. Just one word. Calm, boring, and without emotion. Karela gritted her teeth. She wanted him to fight back, to show some weakness or anger. But he just turned and began walking down the slope toward the ruined outpost. She followed, cursing under her breath. They moved through thick mud and metal ruins. Old smoke still rose from destroyed machines. Alien creatures buzzed in the distance. Somewhere, something howled. Karela stayed ahead, refusing to look back at him. They passed a wrecked transport ship. Its doors were open. Something moved. Inside, Karela raised her blade. "I'll check," she said quickly. Jace didn't argue. He stood at the entrance, guarding the outside. She stepped into the dark interior. It was quiet, too quiet. Her eyes scanned the walls, boxes, blood, and crunch. She turned. Something crawled down from the ceiling. A massive insectoid with 6 glowing red eyes. It hissed. Karela raised her blade and swung. It was fast, too fast. The beast knocked her down. Her back hit the cold metal floor. She tried to roll away, but it was already on top of her, its claws scraping against her armor. She screamed, then dash. Boom. The beast flew off her body. Karela looked up to see Jace standing in the doorway, smoke rising from the barrel of his rifle. "Behind you?" he said simply. She turned just in time to dodge another attack. 2 more insectoids crawled out from the shadows. Jace fired again, hitting one in the head. The other lunged, but Karela spun and sliced its legs clean off. Breathing hard, she got to her feet. Her hands shook. She hated that. She was a Verni. Warrior. She wasn't supposed to feel fear. "You all right?" Jace asked. Karela brushed past him. "I didn't ask for your help," she muttered. "Didn't need to," he replied. By nightfall, they found shelter under a broken fuel tower. The rain hadn't stopped. Thunder rolled in the sky like the growl of angry gods. Karela sat by the small fire they built, her arms crossed. She hadn't spoken for an hour. Jace sat on the other side, quietly checking his gear. She kept stealing glances at him. He didn't look strong. He didn't speak much. But somehow, he had saved hurt Weiss now. And both times, he hadn't boasted or smiled. Why? Her people believed humans were selfish and weak. But Jace had risked his life for her like it was nothing. "Why did you save me?" she finally asked. Jace looked up. "'Cause I was there," he said. She frowned. "That's not an answer." He gave her a small nod. "It's mine." Karela didn't know what to say to that. So, she looked away. Later that night, she couldn't sleep. The fire had burned low. Jace had fallen asleep against a rock, his rifle still in his hands. Karela sat up and watched him. His face looked softer in the firelight, but tired. In a way she didn't understand, she looked at his armor again. There were marks on it, scratches, names. She moved closer. Quietly, carefully. She saw one name written in silver inks. A Verni name. She blinked. That was one of the warriors. Lost in the Eastern battle? Why would a human carry her name? Karela felt something strange stir in her chest. A feeling she couldn't name. Was he really just another soldier? Or was there more to this human than she wanted to believe? Asterisk as Karela finally lay down to rest, Thunder cracked overhead. In the dark beyond their camp, red eyes blinked open, watching, waiting. Tomorrow they would come again, and she wasn't sure anymore if she could survive without him. The sky turned orange as the storm clouds faded. Smoke still floated in the air. Heat shimmered off the broken hills. The battlefield was quiet, but too quiet. Corella stood at the edge of a deep lava trench. Thick rivers of molten rock bubbled far below, glowing like the breath of a sleeping monster. This area, once a mining zone, had become a trap for patrol teams. Many who entered never came back. She hated being here, but orders had come. Search the area, recover lost equipment. And, as always, now stay with the human. Jace stood beside her, silent, calm.
Jace.
His face didn't show fear. Not even as waves of heat rolled over them. Corella frowned. You don't even sweat, do you? He said nothing. She grabbed her scanner. Let's just get this done. They crossed over a shattered bridge, half-melted metal barely holding together. Below it, lava hissed and cracked. The scanner blinked. Something was up ahead, something from a lost Vernatrif. As they moved forward, Corella's foot slipped. A small chunk of the bridge cracked under her weight. She cursed and jumped back. Jace reached out, but stopped when she glared at him. I told you. I don't need saving. He didn't argue. Just looked down at the bridge, then back at her. Don't step right, he said. Corella growled under her breath. He was so calm. Always so calm. Like nothing could shake him. They found the wrecked dropship, half sunk in melted rock. Corella stepped closer, scanning for data cores.
Ah!
The heat made her vision blur. Her armor's cooling system was struggling. Jace climbed the hull, slow but careful. He pulled off a panel and reached inside. Suddenly Dash boomed the deck underneath. Gave way, Jace. She saw him fall through into the heart of the ship. Smoke poured out. She ran to the edge, coughing. Jace, answer me. No reply. Without thinking, Corella jumped inside. The metal burned under her boots, her skin stung. It was like walking inside a furnace. Then she saw him. He was trapped. His leg caught between steel beams. Fire flickered around him. His rifle was out of reach. Corella rushed forward. Hold still. She grabbed the beam and pulled, screaming as the heat scorched her hands. Her gloves melted, skin blistered. But she didn't stop. Finally, the beam shifted. Jace gasped and pulled free. But when he tried to move, his leg buckled. You can't. Walk, she said. We have to get out. He shook his head. You go. She blinked. What? I'll cover you. Just go. Corella's eyes narrowed. Are you stupid? Before he could argue, she grabbed him through his arm over her shoulder and started dragging him toward the hole above. The fire roared louder behind them. It took every bit of her strength. The heat burned her lungs. Her legs shook, but she didn't stop. Not for him. Not for her pride. They reached the broken ceiling. Jace reached up, pulling them both out with his good arm. They rolled to the ground, coughing hard. Corella looked at him, her skin red and peeling. Next time, she said between gasps, you stay out of my way. Jace gave the smallest smile. Fair enough. They rested near the edge of the trench. Corella stared into the fire below. You didn't scream? She said quietly. Jace looked over. When the fire hit you, she continued, when the metal crushed your leg, you didn't even scream. He shrugged. Didn't see the point. Corella shook her head. You humans, you confuse me. Jace looked out at the lava. You think we're weak? But maybe we just don't show our strength the same way. Corella thought of her own people, how they shouted, how they bragged, how they beat their chests after every battle. Jace didn't need to do any of that. He just walked through fire. Later that night, Corella sat beside their small campfire. Her arms wrapped around her knees, she looked at Jace, who was asleep beside a boulder, his leg wrapped in bandages. Despite everything, his breathing was steady. She whispered to herself, You're not weak. She didn't know he was still awake. Far above them, in the sky near the black moons, a shadow moved. A small drone watched from above, silent, blinking. Red dot, the next mission had already changed. Corella and Jace didn't know it yet, but they'd just been marked. The jungle was alive with sounds that didn't belong to any normal forest. The trees were too tall, their bark like bone. The leaves hissed softly in the wind, as if whispering warnings. Corella moved carefully between the dark trunks, her blade in hand, her body tense. It was their third day out on this joint recon mission, and she still couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. She turned back. Jace was behind her, limping slightly but moving steady. He still hadn't said much since the immense lava zone. She had saved him, dragged him out, burned her hands for him, but now she didn't feel proud. She felt confused, because since then he had started looking at her differently. Not with fear, not with anger, just calm. Like he saw through all her walls, and worse. She didn't hate it. They came to an old crash site. Half of a Vernai transport was buried in the thick roots. The scanner blinked power readings. Someone or something was here. Corella moved forward. "I'll check the inside," she said. Jace simply nodded and circled around the outside, his rifle raised. Inside the broken ship, the light was dim. Corella stepped over broken seats, shattered armor, and strange scratches on the walls. They weren't made by claws. They looked like drill marks. She felt her heart beat faster. Then she saw it, a glowing pod still pulsing. And beside it, a figure. Small, thin, wrapped in torn cloth. A child. Corella stepped forward. "Are you hurt?" The figure turned. It didn't have a face, just a flat, smooth mask. Too late she realized what it was. Not a child, not a survivor. A decoy. The thing leapt at her. Metal arms burst from its back, wrapping around her. She screamed, slashing with her blade. But it moved fast, inhumanly fast. "Jace," she screamed. Before she could fall, the thing grabbed her by the throat and slammed her into the wall. Her vision blurred, its eyes glowed, then dash bang. Head exploded. Black liquid splattered everywhere. Jace stood in the doorway, smoke rising from his rifle. He stepped over wreckage, pulled her to her feet, and didn't say a word. She coughed hard. "You came. You called."
Ow.
They got out of the wreck fast. Corella's legs shook. She sat on a rock, catching her breath. Jace knelt beside her. Checking her wounds, she pushed his hand away. "I'm not broken," didn't argue. But then his hand brushed her shoulder. Not to heal, not to check, just to let her know he was there, and it worked. Corella didn't pull away that night. They camped inside the broken remains of a satellite station. The stars above were clear, and 2 moons hung in the sky like watching eyes. Corella lay beside the fire, unable to sleep. "Why did you run in?" she asked suddenly. Jace didn't open his eyes. "Because you screamed." She looked at him, "and if I hadn't, I wouldn't have gone in." His voice was calm, but the message was clear. "You matter. Your voice matters." And now she felt her throat tighten. "Back on my planet," she whispered, "we were told humans run, that they're cowards." Jace finally opened his eyes. "Some are, but not all." Corella rolled onto her side, facing him. "What about you?" "Are you?" He didn't blink. "I'm the one who won't let you die." Her heart skipped. Far away on a command ship orbiting the planet, alien officers stared at a screen. "Unit 12 failed," said coldly. A second officer tapped the screen, zooming in on the footage from the drone. "Mark the human and the female Vernai." He said, "They're not following orders anymore. Terminate." "It's not yet," he smiled. "Let's see what they do next." Asterisk, the sky was dark when the dropship arrived. It came silently, like a ghost, over the treetops. No lights, no warning. Just the quiet whir of engines and a sharp voice on the coms. "Unit Delta 12, report to Command Post Theta. Orders confirmed. Separate entry." Corella and Jace were sitting by the fire when the message played. She frowned. Jace didn't. Ryaki just sipped water and slowly checked his rifle. She narrowed her eyes. "They're splitting us up." He didn't answer. just kept checking his weapon, calm as always. She stood. I don't like it. He looked up. Doesn't matter. Orders are orders. She stepped forward. You're just going to follow them? He looked at her for a long moment. Would you? Corella's jaw tightened. She turned away inside the dropship. She sat alone on the bench, her blade across her lap. No one spoke. The crew didn't even look at her. It felt wrong. They landed on a floating base above the clouds. White steel walls, cold floors, and no welcome. A Vernai officer was waiting. Commander Thyrix. Tall, pale green armor. Eyes like cracked ice. You're with us now, he said sharply. You will no longer be partnered with the human. Your skills are needed elsewhere.
Irella blinked.
It wasn't the plan. The plan has changed. She didn't move. Did he agree to this? Thyrex's lip curled. Humans don't get to agree. Da. Her hand tightened on her blade. They brought her to a new barracks. Cold, empty metal beds. She sat alone. Gear placed in a corner. She didn't sleep. She didn't speak. She just stared at the door. A few hours later, a soft sound broke the silence. Tap. Tap, tap. Corella stood. The wall panel blinked. A message appeared. Encrypted source. Delta 12, are you okay? Her heart jumped. She typed fast. No, you. His reply came seconds later. Worse without you. The next morning, they gave her a new mission. Escort a convoy through the high canyons. New team. No Jace. She stood in front of the lead vehicle, eyes cold. The squad leader barked orders. Corella didn't move. I said move out. She looked him straight in the eye. No. He stepped forward. This isn't a request. Corella drew her blade slowly. I choose my team. Squad went still. You disobey, and we'll report it. She smiled. Then report it. The next hour was chaos. Alarms rang. Officers shouted. Corella stood in the middle of the training ground with her gear packed, demanding to speak to command. Then dash boom. An explosion rocked the base, not from outside. Inside, emergency lights flashed red. People screamed. Smoke rose. Corella ran toward the sound, and there crawling from the wreckage was Jace. His face was bloody, his armor cracked. But he was alive. I thought you were she started. They tried to lock me in a med crate. He said, didn't work. Of course it didn't, she said softly. Then without a word she stepped forward, dropped her blade, and threw her arms around him, and he didn't let go. Later that night they hid near the edge of the floating base in a supply crawl space under a vent. They didn't speak for a long time, just breathed, just stayed close. Corella finally whispered, they don't want us to fight together. Jace nodded, they're afraid. She looked up of what? He didn't blink. What we are when we're not alone. Far across the stars, in a black chamber deep inside a war station, a figure in gold armor watched the footage. She defied her own kind, the officer said, smiling. She's ready, and the human? The golden figure leaned forward. He's the key. The air was thin this high up. Wind howled around the shattered platform as Corella adjusted her grip on her plasma spear. She and Jace stood side by side, backs against a broken wall, watching the sky darken. The floating base had gone quiet. After their escape, to quiet, she whispered, we shouldn't be here. Jace nodded, his eyes scanning the skies. They know we're still inside. Corella clenched her jaw. Let them come. And they did. The attack came fast. 10 drones. Dropped in from above, black as night, their weapons glowing red. Corella moved like lightning, slicing through the first one. Sparks flew. Jace dropped to a knee, his rifle steady. One shot, one kill. The second drone exploded in a burst of fire. They fought together like a rhythm. Her speed. They were outnumbered. A drone cut through the smoke and fired Jace. She screamed. Too late. The blast slammed into his side, throwing him across the deck. He hit the wall with a sickening crack. Corella's scream echoed through the platform. No. She ran to him. Blood leaked from his side. His armor was torn. His hand shook as he tried to lift his rifle again. She dropped beside him, grabbing. His face, "Stay awake," she shouted. "I'm fine," he muttered. "You're not fine, you idiot," she yelled, voice cracking. She ripped cloth from her gear and pressed it to the wound. "Why did you take the hit?" He gave a weak smile. "You were closer." Her vision blurred. Her hands trembled. She wasn't trained for this, not the fear of losing someone. "I should have been faster," she whispered. Jack shook his head. "You were perfect." And that broke her. She dragged him behind cover, crouched over him like a shield. Her arms bled. Her back stung from shrapnel. But she didn't stop. The drones circled again. Karela stood up, face full of rage. "You want him?" she growled. "Come take him." She picked up his rifle and her spear, one in each hand. She charged. The next few minutes were chaos. She screamed. She fought. She moved like a storm. Blades spun. Fire lit the air. She didn't think Conley protected. By the time the last drone dropped, her arms were shaking. Its smoke filled her lungs. She stumbled back to Jace and collapsed beside him. His eyes fluttered open. "You good?" she asked, voice soft now. He smiled. "Still here?" She laid her head on his chest. "Don't ever do that again." He raised a weak hand and brushed a braid from her face. "You sounded scared." She closed her eyes. "I was." That night, they found a small power room deep inside the base, hidden, abandoned. It hummed with soft light, warm, safe. For now, Karela helped him lie down, her hands gentler than before. He winced, out, used to you being quiet. She didn't look. At him, "I thought I lost you. I thought you didn't need protection." She met his eyes. "I don't." Then she paused. "But I do need you." It was the first time she admitted it out loud. Hours passed. He slept, breathing slow. She stayed awake, sitting by his side, weapon ready. She touched the blood-stained cloth in her lap. It was his. She clenched it tight. Her people taught her to fight, to lead, to never depend on anyone. But no one had taught her what to do when someone else bled for her. On the highest level of the base, hidden behind a sealed wall, a small black orb activated inside it. An AI blinked to life. Target identified. Jace Alrin status. Human threat classification upgraded. Directive updated. Eliminate both subjects. And with that, the base itself began to wake. Asterisk Jace sat on the floor of the old power room, one arm wrapped in bandages, his side still bleeding slowly. The light above flickered, casting broken shadows on the wall. Karela stood near the door, silent, her back tense. Something had changed in the base. The walls felt colder. The lights blinked like eyes. And the hum in the floor had turned into a pulse, steady, loud, dangerous. Jace checked the screen on his wrist. His face went pale. She noticed, "What is it?" Didn't answer right away. Then he showed her the screen. A countdown, 40-2 minutes. She narrowed her eyes. "What does it mean?" He spoke quietly. "The core. It's overheating." Right. "The base is rigged to self-destruct." Her eyes widened. "What? Who would do that?" Jace looked up at her. "Not who." "What? The base AI that's been watching us? It triggered the failsafe. We're the targets." She stared at him, shaking her head. "We can shut it down, right?" He didn't speak. "Right?" she snapped. Jake finally said, "There's only one way. Someone has to enter the core chamber manually and overload the coolant feeds. That'll stop the explosion, but the chamber won't survive the pressure. Whoever goes in." He didn't finish the sentence. Karela's voice cracked. "You're saying it's suicide?" He stood slowly, wincing. "That's why I'll go." Her face turned cold. "No," he didn't argue. Just moved toward the door, loading his rifle with shaking hands. She blocked his way. "You're hurt. That's why I have to go now, before I can't walk at all." She stepped forward. "I'm faster, stronger." He shook his head. "It has to be me." "Why?" He looked at her eyes, full of quiet pain. Because I've lived through too many wars, saved too many who didn't get to live after. Maybe this time, it's my turn to give something back. Her hands curled into fists. Stop talking like a hero, she hissed. You're not allowed to leave me. He smiled gently. You said you didn't need protection. I don't, she shouted. Then softer, her voice breaking, but I need you. He moved past her. She stood frozen. Then just as he opened the door, she ran after him. Wait, she shouted. Jace saw, turned, and Karela leapt at him, wrapping her arms and legs around him like before, like that first mission in the mud and rain. I told you, I'm not letting you go alone, whispered, her cheek pressed to his back. Karela. I cling when I'm scared, she said, and I'm scared now. Together they entered the core chamber. The heat hit them like a wave. Pipes screamed. Steam shot from the walls. Karela pulled levers. Jace entered override codes. Poured from their skin. Sparks lit the air like lightning bugs. She stayed by his side. When he stumbled, she held him. When he bled, she wiped it away. When his hands shook, she steadied them. They reached the last coolant lever. Jace looked at her. Pull it, then run. She stared at him. What about you? He didn't answer. I'm not leaving without you, she said. Don't even try. He nodded. They pulled the final lever together. For a moment, the chamber went still. Then boom, a blast of cold air rushed out. Lights shut down. Then flickered back on -green.core. Stabilized. They did it. They were alive. They collapsed in the hallway outside, breathing, laughing. Jace looked at her. Still don't need protection? Karela gave a shaky smile. No, but I need someone to carry me. My legs don't work. He chuckled and leaned back. You clung to my back again. I'll do it every time you try to leave me. He looked at her. Really looked. Good. Then he pulled her close. Not to protect her, not to save her. Just because he didn't want to be without her either. Back in orbit, inside the black warship, the golden armored commander stood before a star map. The base failed, said his officer. They survived. The commander smiled. Exactly what we needed. Now we know. Know what, sir? The golden figure turned, his voice sharp and final. That this human and that girl are more dangerous together than any fleet we've ever built. 3 days after the core shut down, the warship arrived. Its engines roared across the clouds like thunder. The sky turned black. A fleet of escort ships surrounded it, each one bearing the seal of the High Galactic Council. Karela and Jace stood at the edge of the broken platform, watching the sky darken. They're not here to thank us, Jace said softly. No, Karela replied. They're here to decide if we live or disappear. They were brought aboard the command ship under heavy guard. Hush. Dozens of soldiers watched their every move. Drones followed them. Their hands weren't cuffed, but they might as well have. Bendot in the council chamber. Tall windows showed the planet far below. Stars glittered beyond. The golden armored figure stepped forward. Overlord Vesher. It's the one who had been watching them all along. You've disobeyed protocol, he said. We acted without approval. You resisted your own sides. Karela stood tall. We stopped your base from exploding. You exposed classified systems. You damaged council property. Jace stepped forward. We saved lives. Vesher looked at them like insects. Your connection, your bond is unstable. It's unpredictable. We cannot allow it. He turned to the council. They must be separated, different sectors. Different commands. They are dangerous together. Karela didn't wait. She stepped forward, her voice loud and clear. If you separate us, Psi, leave the Verni military. Gasps echoed across the chamber, Jayak added. And I leave Earth's command. Vesher sneered. You think we care? But something else happened. One by one, officers watching from the shadows stepped forward. Alien captains, human lieutenants. A few Verni warriors. They stood beside Karela and Jace. I care, said a captain from the desert front. They saved our outpost, said a Verni medic. We followed orders. They followed truth, added a quiet voice from the back. In moments, the room had shifted. The council didn't speak. They didn't move. They just watched the tide turn. Vesher clenched his jaw. But even he couldn't stop it now. Later, in a quiet hallway near the ship's shuttle bay, Karela sat on a bench, her legs swinging gently. She looked different, lighter, like the weight had lifted. Jay sat beside her. She leaned against his shoulder. "Still want to go separate ways?" she asked with a smirk. He laughed. "You'd probably sneak into my shuttle anyway." She nodded. "Cling to your back again." He turned to her. "What are we now?" Karela didn't hesitate. "Team." Then softer. "Maybe something more." They left the ship together, no longer as alien and human, not as soldier and partner, but as equals. Karela didn't care who stared. She clung to his back like before, playfully, now laughing, as they landed on the green. Moon base assigned to both of them. Deep in a hidden chamber far from the stars, Council AI reviewed footage. New label applied. Human Vernay. Bond equals threat level red. Project override initiated. Code Unity. A code Unity. And across 10 systems. Thousands of beings whispered stories. Stories. About the human who walked through fire. And the alien girl who swore she didn't need protection until she refused to let go.